little bit of everything.
It is 5 o'clock, and we are starting the regular meeting of the Tehachapi Unified School District's Governing Board. And roll call.
President Kaminsky,
Present.
Vice President Kelly,
Here.
Clerk Wood. Here. Trustee Cooper,
Here.
Trustee Christensen,
Here.
Trustee Napier.
Here.
Trustee Sweeney absent. Interim Superintendent Francis Lynch,
Here.
and I'm Deanna Barnes.
I should note for the board, I did get in contact with Trustee Sweeney, and she'll be here at 6. Flag salute and moment of silent reflection. Tonight, we're going to be led by our superintendent, Frank Lynch. Ready? Begin. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. And I'm going to suggest a change since closed session, our legal counsel will not be available till 5:30. So I'm going to move something up, if it's all right with the board. And that would be item 9, public employee appointment and approval of employment contract, title superintendent. Yay, nay?
Sure.
Okay. So with that change, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Kelly, make the motion.
Second.
There's a motion by Vice President Kelly, seconded by Trustee Cooper, to move item 9 up to item 3, and everything else moved down. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. So the Brown Act requires the board to orally report a summary of a recommendation for final action on salaries, salary schedules, or compensation paid in the form of fringe benefits for, quote, local agency executives, end quote, which includes superintendents. The oral report must be made prior to taking final action on the compensation in open session at the same meeting where the final action is taken. The next item for consideration is the proposed employment contract for Brian Bell as the new superintendent for a term beginning July 1st, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2028. The proposed contract calls for an initial base salary of $230,000 based on a 225-day work year, the same paid health and welfare benefits provided to district management employees, an automobile allowance of $600 per month, $100 per month technology and cell phone allowance, and paid membership dues in 2 professional organizations for school administrators. Is there a motion to approve the contract of employment for the new superintendent as circulated to the board?
I move. Second.
There's a motion by Trustee Christensen and seconded by Vice President Kelly oh, so was it Napier instead of you? Okay, I'm sorry. It was motion by Trustee Christensen, seconded by Trustee Napier to approve the contract as stated. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Mr. Bell, would you like to come forward?
Thank you, President and trustees. One of the let you know I'm excited and thank. Oh, perfect. There we go. Again, once again, Board President and trustees, Superintendent Lynch, excited and just honored for your vote tonight. Wanted to thank you all for the opportunity of choosing me as the next superintendent for Tehachapi Unified School District. Look forward to many years of collaboration and growth. And 97 days from this evening will be July 1st for my launch. So really excited about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bell.
You bet.
If you'd like, you can come up and sign. Next item is public comments for closed session. Closed session, there's one item, conference with legal counsel, potential litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9, subdivision D2, one potential case. Are there any public comments for closed session? In closed session, the comments made need to pertain to the closed session item. Before we go into closed session, I want to ask, we have a number of comments, public comments. Since there's discussion on RTI later in the meeting and the social worker, do those people wish to wait till that discussion comes up or give it at the regular time? Or do you care? Seeing no oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Colby.
I'd like to speak before the social worker.
Okay. Anyone else? Ms. Webb? Okay.
President Kaminsky?
Yes.
I think it'd be best if the comments were with each agenda item to keep it
Well, that's why I offered it
concise.
to them.
That would be
but-
my recommendation, to keep it with each agenda item. If there's generic public comment, to let that be at that time, but,
Well, that
comment.
was my thought as well, but I want to give them the option and,
okay.
so.
I think it'd just be easier for the board to hear the thoughts and then be taking action or discussion right after.
I'm fine with that, then. I'm okay with that.
You're okay with that?
Yes, sir.
So is Webb.
I'm seeing a thumbs up from Ms. Webb. Okay. We'll do that. And at 5:10, we are adjourning to go into closed session. It is 5:57. We are resuming with our regular session, and there is no report of action taken in closed session. So we're moving on to general function. Superintendent update, Mr. Lynch.
Good evening, board members, members of the public. Glad to be here tonight. Our update is rather short this week, so I'll start off with some trustee visits. I did make some trustee visits on Wednesday, March 12th with Clerk Wood and Trustee Cooper. We visited TILA, JMS, and the high school, and had some other dates scheduled for site visits. They became snow days, so we have to reschedule those. And then we went to print before we actually had visits yesterday morning as well. So yesterday went on visits with Board Member Christensen and Vice President Kelly and President Kaminsky, and went over to the high school, TILA, and JMS again. So we'll work on rescheduling the elementary school sites. Snow days, we had snow days on March 13th and 14th, and on the 18th. And so those have been rescheduled to March 28th, April 22nd, and Friday, May 23rd. We do have one remaining snow/PS day on the calendar. However, that date is currently slotted as our teacher PD day on May 9th. However, given the rules that the state has, if for some reason we do have to close another day, meaning take another snow day or a power shut-off day, we will have to make the 9th a school day, and then reschedule our teacher PD day at another point that I'll work out with our labor partner, and we'll get that figured out with TAT and get that scheduled. The reason for that is if we don't make use of a snow day and put in for a J13 approval, it would get denied because we didn't use all of our available snow days. So just so we're aware that that's a possibility. And then finally, we have some upcoming dates and events, which you have. I will be happy to send any of those out to you as appointments for your calendar. If you let me know that you want them sent as appointments, I can do that. So, okay. Alrighty. And that's it for my report tonight. Short and sweet.
Thank you, Superintendent Lynch. TAT update. Ms. Bowman? Oh, Ms. Smith?
Good evening, members of the school board, Superintendent Lynch, and members of the community and fellow teachers. My name is Jessica Smith, and I'm the elementary vice president for the Tehachapi Association of Teachers. I'd like to begin by expressing my gratitude to the board for the improvements made in communication regarding the final candidate for our superintendent position. The updated language on the website, along with the clarifications sent out prior to last week's meet and greet meetings, provided much needed transparency and clarity, and we appreciate the effort that was made to ensure an open-minded and informed process. In meeting the final candidate, Brian Bell, we are hopeful as we move forward as a school district. Strong leadership is essential for the success of our schools, and we look forward to the direction our district will take under his new leadership. Additionally, we want to extend our thanks to the board for including the discussion item on tonight's agenda regarding RTI, teachers, as well as the continued dialogue around mental health professionals in our schools. These roles are vital in providing academic support and emotional well-being for our students. We can only hope that an amicable solution is reached tonight, one that continues to support all students effectively and equitably. Finally, I want to acknowledge and appreciate the board's commitment to transparency and open communication. When educators, administrators, and the community work together, we create stronger, more supportive environment for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. CSEA update? Seeing none. Board communications? Anyone?
Yes.
Clerk Wood?
Yes, I went to the high school last week to the Career Technical Education Advisory Committee. It was a meeting, and it was great. I learned a lot about grants that they're doing, and I have a schedule here, but I was hoping that maybe we could have Julie Heasley come and give us an update, because there's a lot of great things, and if she can't, maybe Frank can give us one in April, because it's a lot of good stuff, a lot of money. They're working really hard over there. So yay to Julie and her team.
I would agree with you 100%. Our CTE program is expanding, and we're meeting the needs of our students. And I see Superintendent Lynch writing down the note to arrange that, so. Anyone else? I had the pleasure of dropping by JMS about 2 weeks ago to give Mr. Adamson, asked him to deliver a cash prize from our Rotary Club to Serena Thornburg for winning our club essay contest in the middle school division. And I'm thrilled to report that all winners their essays are sent to our Rotary District 5240, where she was in the mix of competition with students from Santa Barbara County, San Luis Obispo County, Ventura County, and Kern County. And she came in second. So at a future Rotary meeting, yes. I don't want to discourage anybody from entering next year, even though Serena's won our club contest 4 years in a row as an elementary student and a middle school student. Anyway, so like I said, I know the district governor representative will want to come to our club and deliver the check in person to her, as they have before. Okay, with that, we'll go to public comments. Now again, some we will hold till we get to the discussion items. And if some of these descriptions, their comments on we think if it applied to RTI or to social worker, we moved it to that, for that discussion later. So if these that I call are somehow related to, and they want to speak at the RTI discussion or the social worker time, just let me know and I'll move it over there. So the first one's Jessica Smith. RTI. Claire Ray.
Good evening. I just wanted to share some great news that is happening at Tompkins. On May 2nd, we are pairing with the high school Unified Warriors, and we're going to be doing what we're calling Tompkins Elementary's Possum Partners, and we're going to be hosting our first Special Olympics Field Day. So in conjunction with the high school, our students with disabilities from preschool, so those cute little tiny 3-year-olds, all the way through 5th grade are going to pair with their neurotypical peers in play, and they're going to be supported by the high school students for this great field day. So we would like to invite you, the board, if you would like to come. I can send you an invite, or just know it's May 2nd between 12 and 2:45. And we're just hoping this will bring a sense of unity and inclusiveness to our TUSD community. So please join us. It'll be a really fun event.
Thank you, Ms. Ray. Megan Kennedy.
Okay, I'm a little loud, so I'm going to back up. It's time.
Whenever you
I'm
start.
ready. Okay, my name is Megan Kennedy. I've had students in the school district for 35 years. You were my son's 5th grade teacher. I have a student in 6th grade now. She's in special ed. She's my granddaughter. I raise her. And I wanted to bring to your attention that over the last 8 months, none of her accommodations have been met. Her teacher is very verbally abusive. Kids are getting taken out of the class. They're not returning. There's several of us. I have alerted the SPED director, the principal. We have emails back and forth. The only thing that has been accommodated to her is a hot pass, so she can get out of this specific teacher's class. I've never had issues like this before. The meltdowns are absolutely heartbreaking, and the only thing I'm told that can happen is if I just take her out of school and put her in TILA. So she loves her other teachers. She got put in gen ed as a special ed student, but I constantly have to talk her to come to school. And I just wanted you guys to be aware of that because I'm not the only parent. There's some that could not be here tonight due to some other engagements, but I'm concerned. I'm very concerned that she should have to go to school and be abused like this. And it's only one teacher, and she's special ed. So I just wanted you guys to be aware of that because this was my first stop to let you guys know. Okay?
Thank you, and I'll direct Superintendent Lynch to follow up with that.
Okay, thank you. Oh, you're right behind me.
Gary Soderstrom?
Okay, am I okay to speak? Yes? Okay, I have a lot to get through, so I'll try and hurry up here. Hello, my name is Carrie Soderstrom. I'm speaking to the board as a mother of a child that attends TILA in the school district. My son has an IEP in this district, and we have been in IEP meetings since my son was in TK at Cummings Valley. We have been through a few changes in administration personnel throughout. And we have entered into this process in 2020 and 21 with our educational advocate, Beverly Foster, who is here with us today. I have chosen to speak up today as it has become apparent that this board only hears from those that are employed by this district unless parents or others speak up in these meetings. I know that the information you have received in the past has completely been downplayed or erased entirely the unbelievable behavior from personnel and administration in this district. And I want to be as direct as possible today with you, as I have found that abuse continues as long as it is in silence. I want to name at least two of the most egregious individuals in this administration that have not only acted illegally, but unethically and immorally, Bonnie Porter and Tay Mock, and they are here in this room. I ask that this district take a very thorough look at their conduct, and it is of my opinion that they should no longer be employed by this school district here, or in any school district in the future, based off of the conduct I have directly witnessed and recorded over the years. I want to add that my opinion has been more than corroborated with almost every single outside professional we have encountered. This includes multiple IEE professionals, multiple private health professionals, multiple educational advocates, educational lawyers, and most importantly, the OCR, the Office of Civil Rights within the Board of Education. It is widely known in this region and with educational professionals that the Tehachapi Unified School District is nowhere near fair or equitable regarding special education students. This is absolutely a systemic problem that demands action from this board. And as this has been going on for decades within our community. In my case in particular, we were forced to file an OCR complaint based off of overt discrimination my son faced at the hand of Bonnie Porter and Tay Mock. After particularly horrible and vindictive action was taken by Bonnie Porter against my son, our complaints were met with one meeting and absolutely no action from the administration. The previous superintendent who received our complaint, a complaint that was received with a complete lack of understanding and an absolutely incredulous tone. This discrimination of special needs children was of special needs children from 4 to 9 years old. Because this district has operated with extreme negligence, my son has endured trauma as he is not supported adequately for his disabilities. And he has, for the last 2 to 3 years now, endured purposeful exclusion from school activities, programs, even
Ms. Soderstrom,
socialization.
you need to wrap it up, please. Okay.
because of Bonnie Porter and Tane Mock. Not only was my son told by Bonnie Porter that he could not attend a federally funded school campus, TILA, but that she also decided that when she didn't get her way, that she would strip my son of almost every accommodation he had in his IEP based off of her own preference. She has also threatened my son.
Ma'am, I need to stop you there. I'll direct the superintendent to follow up on that.
Okay, I have my
Have you met
speech.
with the superintendent yet?
Absolutely. I have my speech written and I will email all of you
That'd
immediately
be fine.
with the
Thank you.
remaining speech. Yes, I'll email you that as well.
Are there any other public comments for the board that do not pertain to RTI or social worker? Okay, we'll move on. Item 10, consent agenda. In order to promote efficient meetings, the board may bundle a number of items and act upon them together by a single vote through the use of a consent agenda. Consent items shall be items of a routine nature and items for which board discussion is not anticipated and for which the superintendent recommends approval. When any board member requests the removal of an item from the consent agenda, the item shall be removed and given individual consideration for action as a regular agenda item. Are there any board members that wish to pull any of the consent items? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Kelly make the motion.
Second.
It was motioned by Vice President Kelly, seconded by Trustee Cooper, that the board approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And I failed to mention that when we came back to a regular session from closed session, that Trustee Sweeney happily joined us. 5:55, according to Vice President Kelly. Item 11, Superintendent. Number 1, discussion, response to intervention.
Good evening again, board and public. Per request from our board member, we have included some topics for discussion, and the first one this evening is response to intervention. And so I will
All right.
turn it over to you to open the discussion.
We'll let the folks that had public comments. So again, the public comments will be allowed. The board president will recognize any member of the audience wishing to speak on items not on the agenda, but directly related to school business. Pursuant to Board Bylaw 9323, the board may limit comments to no more than 3 minutes per person. Public comment will also be allowed on each specific action item prior to board action. The president may allot time to those wishing to speak, but no action will be taken on matters presented, and no discussion of non-agenda items will occur. If appropriate, the president or any member of the board may direct that the matter be referred to the superintendent's office for placement on a future agenda. Becky Sasha.
My name is Becky Sasha, and I'm the RTI teacher at Tompkins. I started it with TOC in 1977. I was a 5-year-old enrolled at Tompkins in Mrs. Cummings' kindergarten class. I was not timid or nervous as a kindergartner. I cannot wait to see my teacher meet the kids and work hard. Nearly 50 years later, I show up to Tompkins each day just as excited to see the kids and just as eager to excel. Teaching is my calling. Giving back to the community that I love is a driving factor. Even with 30 years of experience as a teacher, I wanted to be trained for this specific teaching position when I accepted it. I paid for and attended a 3-day RTI conference, and I took 2 science of reading courses. My training is current, cutting edge, and effective. Both RTI teachers have been trained in the most recent and advanced reading techniques and strategies to improve reading skills and to incorporate research-based methods. Our students are getting specialized reading instruction. At the last board meeting, I gave you a sampling of my data. I would love to show you more details and share student stories with you given the chance. I could share of a 5th grade student with improvement of 680% fluency in a very short time. This is not an isolated example. We have data on every RTI student. Across the board, every single child has improved when looking at our data. Each day, myself and my team work with 162 struggling learners. Some of these students are exited in just a few weeks' time. Others are in the program longer. So far this year, RTI has provided services to 261 students at Tompkins. That's 40% of the Tompkins student body. This percentage will increase by the time the school year is over. That's a lot of children who've benefited from teacher-led intervention. RTI is a proven and successful program. Having trained and highly skilled credentialed teachers leading the RTI program and working directly with students is crucial to the program's success. Not only do I show up each day and work wholeheartedly for students because of what this district did for me, I also show up because of what it failed to do for some of my family members before me. My dad attended elementary school here in Tehachapi 70 years ago. Although he could read, he did not read well. The teachers back then did not have the patience to teach a bright, busy boy to read. Although my dad went on to be a very successful businessman, the fact that he was never a good reader made life harder for him and was a low-level source of shame. A small group setting away from the whole class would have made all the difference for a kid like my dad. Why would we revert back to a time when we weren't providing the support our kids so desperately need? 70 years later, we can do better for the students who depend on us for their education. The Core Reading Academy course that both of your RTI teachers completed taught us the research of systematic foundational reading instruction and intervention. Evidence-based reading instruction and phonemic awareness and phonics can change brain activity in struggling readers, including those with dyslexia. Our intervention programs are sending students into the world as readers. I just have about a paragraph I'd like Wendy DiUlio to finish.
Including? Yes, let's start.
Ms. Dealey, if you would state your name for the
Hi,
record.
good evening. I am Wendy DiUlio. I teach 3rd grade at Tompkins with Becky Sasha. Thank you for letting me finish her speech here. Our intervention programs are sending students into the world as readers, changing the trajectory of a student's whole life in a meaningful way. Where we put our money is a direct reflection of our priorities. What are our district's true priorities? My priority in my life's work is aimed at educating kids. I truly believe our board shares that heart for kids. I believe you're here giving your time and experience to make a difference. This is truly a chance to make a tremendous difference for our students. I ask you to keep our RTI program led by credentialed teachers. Whether it be from general funding or Title I funding, there is no better use of our money. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim Ross?
Turned it off. There we go. All right, here you go. All right. Good evening. My name is Kim Ross, and I'm the intervention teacher at Golden Hills Elementary. And I'm here tonight to ask that you consider not eliminating the RTI programs at Golden Hills and Tompkins. My first 2 years doing intervention, my 2 paras and myself supported over 160 students in our reading and math programs. This year so far, my 1 para and myself have overall supported 100 students for reading and 60 students in math at this time. In this current session that we're doing, which is about 6 to 8 weeks, we are supporting 90 students every day. And I know that there is a concern about numbers of students that are qualifying for special education services, but I'd like to take a look at the number of students that are actually not qualifying. So based on, I talked with my RSP teacher who's right next door, and in the last 2 years, since August of 2024 to currently today, there have been 37 students tested. 13 of those students did not qualify. 24 did qualify. okay? But out of those 6, they were parent requests, and so they were students I never got to see. So I took them off the list. So that leaves 18. Out of those 18, 9 of those were kindergartners and early firsties that I did not have a chance to see because of the grade levels. So that brings me down to 9 that did qualify and did receive RTI services. And because of those students, I don't know how long their RTI services with me were. I don't know what they got qualified for, but had I maybe spent a little bit more time with them or been able to intervene a little bit more, then the numbers might be a little bit different. So I like to look at the big number of 13 that did not qualify, because in her first, she's been teaching for 5 years in RSP, the RSP teacher at our site. In her first 3 years, only 2 that she tested in those whole 3 years did not qualify out of everyone else. In the last year and a half now, I've got it up to 13 that did not qualify. So I believe that our intervention program played a very huge important part of that. If the RTI programs are eliminated, a huge and very important component of the MTSS system will no longer be available to academically support struggling students. We have a population of students that are not able to attend tutoring outside of the school hours. And aside from that, we all know that not every student, every child learns at the same rate. They come to us with various abilities and deficiencies. We often get students from outside of our district that are far below grade level. I have found that these students, though, are very capable of learning at the highest levels. They are just in need of a little extra support. And sometimes we support these students for 2 to 3 years. As the SST coordinator for Golden Hills, I'm happy to also report that I have witnessed numerous students being exited out of the SST process as 4th and 5th graders, and that's after being in the intervention program for 2 to 3 years. In closing, I would just like to reiterate the importance of having an academic intervention program in the schools. And I completely understand district funding and all the different buckets in the money that goes into it. It is necessary to eliminate the intervention programs, but I want to ask you guys this question. If there is anything that will be offered in its place, please think of that. I really appreciate that you put on the agenda to have this discussion tonight. And if what is the plan that we can do to help address the academic needs of these struggling students? And if there is no plan, then maybe we should hold off on eliminating this program until there is a plan. I appreciate that you have it on the agenda. That tells me that you did that it is also important to you. Okay, and so thank you for listening, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Ann Wood.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ann Wood, and I'm currently a 2nd grade teacher at Tompkins. I've been a teacher here with the district for 17 years. I would like to speak from the heart when I ask the board to carefully consider the removal of our RTI teachers. And from what we've heard, attempting to go to a push-in model of intervention and support. I actually started my career as a Title I reading aide and then implemented our very first RTI program. And I spent many, many, many hours, days researching response to intervention and figuring out how we could best serve our struggling population. Excuse me. In the years that I've been here, it has changed, from year to year, changed quite a bit in what we offered and how it looked. But, sorry. And we've also gone back and forth debating whether we should do a pull-out or a push-in. Push-in has been attempted, but we always go back to doing pull-out, seems like, because it seriously is what's best for the students. With a push-in in a classroom, students often face numerous distractions that can hinder their learning. By pulling students into a quieter, more controlled environment, these distractions are minimized. This setting allows students to concentrate better and engage more deeply with the material, which leads to better learning and improved outcomes. I feel pulling struggling students helps build their confidence. When students receive targeted support and experience success in a smaller setting, their self-esteem improves. This boost in confidence often translates into better performance in the regular classroom, creating a positive cycle of growth and achievement. I have not experienced any stigma associated with students going to RTI. I feel working within the classroom will have the opposite effect. They love going, and other students really have no idea what they're doing. They're just going to another classroom during a certain time of day. They know that their friends go somewhere else. I feel working on remedial skills within the classroom in a group with another teacher will be debilitating and demoralizing because they are exposed to the rest of the students at that same time. And everyone will hear what's going on in that group. I am also concerned, that when we don't have a full-time teacher running the program, it will be very difficult to implement it with fidelity and rigor.
Ms. Wood, you need to wrap it up, please.
Yes. We don't want to lose focus that this is for the students, and we should not move the district backwards. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. Tammy Hughes.
Is it on? Yeah. Hi, my name is Tammy Hughes. I've been teaching third grade at Tompkins for the last 9 years. Prior to that, I was an RTI teacher in another district for math and reading. And it was a very good program because we did raise our test scores up 23 points the first year in reading and 18 points the second year in math. My 9 years at Tompkins, every year I have had kids that have gone to RTI. Last year I had 2 students that entered my class that had never been in school. They didn't even know their alphabet, and this is third grade. And through RTI with Miss Becky Sasha and us working together, we had these kids reading by the end of the school year. They weren't quite at grade level, but they knew their alphabets and they knew the phonemes and they were starting to read. The push-in model that's being proposed, I feel is very disruptive. I personally, my class isn't a portable. So I don't have a huge class. I have one table that's in the back of the classroom, which is where I sit with my small groups. And if somebody's coming in, I have nowhere for them to sit. They would be on the floor. I would have one group working independently, my other small group that I'm working with, and then them working on whatever they're doing. And it would be very disruptive having 3 different groups working on different things at the same time in a small portable classroom. And if we didn't have an RTI teacher, they're the ones that track all the data. If we didn't have an RTI teacher, how would we be able to track the data? They track all the data for the iReady tests that we take, all the mastery diagnostics, the ESGI testing, the fluency testing, all throughout the year. And if we have a learning director that's going to be in charge of that, learning directors get pulled all the time, at least at our school they did. They were getting pulled to substitute. They were getting pulled to supervise on the playground because maybe we had people that were out that day covering the front office, administrative responsibilities. And if they're being pulled to go somewhere else, then our students are not going to be provided services with fidelity. Last of all, I think the RTI program is very successful. So why fix something that's not broken?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hughes. Jessica Smith.
Good evening again. I want to express my strong support for keeping the RTI program in place. This program is essential for supporting students who need targeted interventions to succeed academically. To ensure the longevity and stability of RTI, I urge the board to consider funding it through LCAP or general funds rather than relying on Title I or COVID-related funding. Personnel, regardless of their hiring location or role, should be funded through a stable source like LCAP or general funds rather than a temporary or fluctuating source that put these critical positions at risk. And this includes our social workers as well. To be clear, we need an RTI teacher at all 3 elementary sites, not just the 2 that were previously classified as Title I schools. If you fund it from something like LCAP or the general fund, you do not have to only fund it for those 2 schools. You can fund it for all 3. Every student, regardless of the school that they attend, deserves access to this vital support. Literacy intervention and ensuring students become proficient in both math and reading is not a luxury, it is a right. All students deserve the opportunity to build strong foundational skills, and this program plays a crucial role in making that possible. By securing RTI funding through LCAP or general funds, we can ensure equitable access for all elementary students, rather than limiting this resource based on past classifications. Our students deserve consistent and reliable support, and I hope that this board prioritizes this funding approach to maintain and strengthen the RTI program across all of our sites. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Is there anyone else that would like to make a public comment on RTI? Okay. Board, this is your time to share your thoughts. Trustee Napier.
Okay. I was not checking Facebook. I was writing all my notes because I started writing them down by hand, and I will not be able to read my own writing. So let me hit a few highlights here, and I'll end it with kind of a closing statement. So yeah, those are the experts, and kind of the theme in my mind during those public comments that I heard this week and last week were those are the experts. And I think I can speak for the board. We're not experts in RTI, but we were elected by the people of this community to support the experts. And we should not be standing in their way. I've been a strong advocate in not holding teachers accountable for poor test scores, because we all know kids don't pay attention, right? When there's test scores that, does this affect my grade, Mr. So-and-so? No, okay, whatever. However, the reading data that comes to the RTI program is abundantly clear. And that is not skewed whether they care about the test or not. It is abundantly clear whether they can read or not. I have had kids of my own go through this program. Many of the people that spoke here tonight were my kids' teachers. Again, these are the experts. The way the situation was handled, I'll be honest, I'm incredibly disappointed that we even got to this place. I will speak for myself that anytime a program like this is taken out of the hands of the experts, I will speak up. And I hope our board will. I think we were very unanimous last 2 weeks ago, that moments like this, that decisions are made behind closed doors, that truly affect our kids with decisions that have real data. And we've seen it for ourselves that this program works, and keeping it in the hands of the experts is the only way to do this. So I'm not going to read my email that I sent after last board meeting, but I made 2 formal requests to the superintendent board president. But I was very clear that I wanted these to be action items tonight because I wanted to close these 2 items out tonight. But there were some logistics why that can't happen. That's totally understandable. I get it. But I'm going to make a request, formally request that this item be placed on the agenda for next meeting. The board should have the opportunity to vote whether to keep the RTI program as it is or make changes. I will be very clear that I will not be voting to make changes. I'm also asking for the staff and superintendent to agendize this item with the intent of allowing the experts to continue their outstanding work as they have done for decades. In addition to that, I would highly suggest that to all staff take note that I, as a board member, will support the experts. And when things are taken out of the hands of the experts, I'm going to speak up, and we'll have rooms like this full of the experts to speak up. So with that being said, I will follow this up with an email as I did last week, but I cannot be clear enough that if we're going to take things out of the hands of the experts, that's going to be a problem.
Thank you, Trustee Napier. Any other board member wish to contribute?
I'll say something.
Okay. Trustee Sweeney.
I'm along the lines with Tyler here. To highlight some key points here, and then also for personal experience, I think I've had all of my kids go through RTI, and it has really changed who they are and how they look at school. To Becky's point, to know that 40% of Tompkins students uses this program is a very eye-opening thing on how much it's needed. To Ann Wood's point, the fact that creating multiple groups in a classroom is incredibly distracting. I can't agree with this more. My daughter has ADHD, and I can't have her sit next to her brother in the home, so I can't imagine her in a classroom. I think all of the hard work that she's done will absolutely revert, and this is a teenager at this point. I can't imagine how it would do for an elementary student. Creating a stigma is a thing, and I can't agree with that more. My friends think they get to go somewhere special, is what my daughter says. Oh, I have a project I'm doing, or I'm doing some different things here and there, but having it singled out in a classroom really can't be seen any other way. Kids are mean. Gabby, I'm happy to hear that you had students go from not knowing an alphabet to knowing how to read. That is tremendous work. And to all of the people that spoke today, I know it is incredibly difficult work, and I appreciate everything that you guys have said and brought to the board. And I would agree wholeheartedly that taking this away from you guys and the teachers, I think kids will get lost in the shuffle. We won't be able to keep track of their progress. We won't be able to see their overall data. And like to Tyler's point, we can see it in our year-over-year results. So I too am looking forward to seeing this as an agenda item.
Vice President Kelly.
Superintendent Lynch, did you have more to present on this topic?
I do have some comments on it. I guess want to be clear that there was a discussion at the cabinet level about RTI, and it wasn't specific to RTI necessarily. The discussion we had more to do with Title I funding. And so RTI has been funded by Title I, as far as I know, for the last couple of years. In the past, we've only had 2 elementary schools and the middle school that qualify as Title I schools. This coming year, we will actually have another school that qualifies, which is the high school, which makes sense since the high school gets all the kids that come from the other schools. And so that being said, the difficult discussion was we have now another school that qualifies, but our funding did not change. So we have a set amount of Title I dollars that now have to be divided between 4 schools. The discussion included the fact that every school, what the district has provided out of Title I funds in the past is every school gets a learning director. And so that was part of the discussion. And to not have learning directors going forward would have required us to have action before the 15th of March, obviously, because that's when that has to be done. And so that being said, we tried to figure out solutions that didn't involve not having learning directors because we were kind of late on the calendar for that. So the discussion was that we would have the learning directors at each site and repurpose the learning directors so that they had a much more student-facing role, and that would include the RTI program. So we actually discussed that RTI would have to continue, but just have a different look to it. Similar, I think, to what one of them said was that it's had different faces over the course of time. I don't have the privy to know all of what those faces looked like or how impactful they were, whether they were positive or negative or how they've gone in the past. So I had to make a decision based on what I know about what we're doing and what I know about the numbers that we have and what personnel we have in place that I either have a position for or don't have a position for. And so we have to take all of those parts of it into consideration. At no time did we think we're doing away with RTI. That was never even stated that we would eliminate RTI. We did know that with this change, the lion's share of students that qualify for Title I. So the way that Title I funding works is we take the number of dollars we get, and basically, if we're funding positions from the district for every site that qualifies, we have to fund those positions, and then whatever dollars are left, we figure out how that impacts each site that qualifies. And so there's a number of students that qualify, and we take the number of dollars divided by the total number of students that qualify for Title I, and then each student each site is given the number of dollars based on the number of students they have that qualify. So once all that calculation is done, what was left at each of the sites that had been funding their own RTI teacher through their Title I funds was not enough to fund that teacher. So it really was a byproduct of a larger discussion. It never was intended to be, well, we're just going to get rid of RTI, because obviously, I think anybody in this room who's an educator and knows, most important thing we can do is make sure that our kids are reading by 3rd grade and that kind of thing. At no point did we say, yeah, we don't need to do this. It was just a byproduct of a larger discussion that had to do with how we figure out our Title I funding.
Well, my rebuttal to that would be take these conversations outside the cabinet. Talk to the principals, talk to the experts. That's what you need to do. Go to the schools, see what their biggest needs are. Maybe the learning director is not the biggest need. I don't know. We're not the experts, but stop with the idea of it lives in the cabinet. Go to the experts. Go to the experts, please.
Superintendent, thank you for that. So at this point, we have not given, there's been no learning directors that have been given a pink slip, for lack of a better word, correct?
That's correct. We haven't given any pink slips this year.
And have the RTI teachers as a whole, been given notices?
They have had a discussion with the personnel department about having to be assigned to a different position for the coming year, but they do still have positions.
Okay, thank you for that. For those of you that don't know, I am I've got 2 credentials in special ed, mild mod and mod severe. I'm currently an RSP classroom teacher in LA County. I am 1,000% in favor of keeping our RTI teachers in place as they are. I do not think that a learning director quasi-admin position would be able to be trained and effective starting in August. I just don't think that makes sense. I'm hoping this becomes, I don't know if it needs to be an action item for us. I think that's the superintendent's position, but I'm not positive. That's why we're having a discussion. But I am not in favor of learning directors directing our paras or instructional aides in a push-in model, and I don't think that's going to be effective. Thank you.
Trustee Christensen?
Thank you, President. First, speaking from experience, I grew up with ADHD and dyslexia. So not only could I not read, but I had to do it backwards. So, and the teachers in here, you dealt with kids like me. It wasn't until 5th grade when I actually got traction on being able to read. So I understand where everybody stands on this. My sole focus is on the kids. We, right now, need our children to be able to replace us. They have to be able to read. They've got to be able to do the math. And that means keeping whatever works. Now, granted, sometimes some things don't work. But if we don't keep it in place, personally, to me, I feel that we fail our children. Now, I'm not saying it is the perfect thing, okay? I come from a military background, and I was always taught if it doesn't work, you find what does. We need to make sure that the kids can do that. Like Trustee Kelly said, nobody's been handed anything yet, correct? Okay. That means right now it's in the process. And I think if all of us together, see that I'm not looking at this as administrators, and I'm not looking at the board and everything. This is a team, everybody. Because the people up here care just as much as the parents, as the teachers, and as the RTI teachers. If we can't work past the point of, well, they're on that side of the fence and I'm on this side of the fence, remove the fence. Get the fence out of the way. Because if we don't pull together, this generation of children are going to have a problem. And I know some of you teachers do not want to move your kids on. It's all that you can do to just get the words into them, to get them to read, to get them to act in it, to do it. And it's a team effort. So if there's a problem, ask somebody, move up the line, take it to the principal, take it to the superintendent. We have to do something together, okay? Coming together, headbutting is not going to help any of us, and especially the children will be the ones that lose. So I do agree that we need to keep it there until we find out, yes, it's working, no, it doesn't. How can we adjust whatever we have to make it work? I worked for a guy that would move people around in his corporation. They hired in as an engineer. He's like, you're no good at it as an engineer. But you put them out on the floor and work, and they were phenomenal at what they did. We can find what works as long as we work together.
Sorry, I'm a little wordy tonight, but you made a couple comments there. Find what works. It is working. The RTI program's working. So leave it alone. Let the experts be the experts. It's working.
Trustee Cooper, Clerk Wood, do you want to add to the discussion? Trustee Cooper.
Well, from the voice of experience, many years ago, I saw the predecessor to situations similar as this. That only meant that the class, if you didn't make it through the class, you were left behind. When I graduated high school, probably 20% of my graduates that graduated with me were students that were left behind in the first or second grade. I will also say that if you start changing teachers and you have multiple teachers, that doesn't work in the grade school, it doesn't work in college either. I taught one semester, we had 3 different teachers in one class because of situations. And the students, they just didn't do as well as the class where there was a single teacher. Sometimes it just takes a special interest or someone to say a kind word and get that student by themselves so they can talk. And it's amazing what a kind word will do to the desire to learn. Had a student again, all I did was tell her one time, you have great potential. And she went from a student to a top student just because she said, you're the first professor that ever told me that. And so I am all for catching up the kids that need to be caught up because we don't all start at the same level. Just as the students started with not the ability to read, some students start already with the ability to read, but sooner or later we have to catch up to meet the challenges that come before us. And if you can read, you can write, and you can do arithmetic, you can do anything.
Clerk Wood.
I just would like to say that I'm in support of the RTI program as it stands. Thank you.
I feel the same way. After the meeting 2 weeks ago, because my brain is old, I remembered, because there were a couple of comments that there's no RTI program at CV. Well, I was the principal at CV for 2.5 years, about 12, 14 years ago. Maybe Mastilio can tell me when it was. But anyway, it was a concern at CV by all the staff that we needed to address our struggling readers, especially in the early grades, and we had no Title I money. So what we did, and this was probably my last year when I was the principal there, we had the kids assessed by their teacher and put into 3 groups. Those that needed response to intervention, those that were okay, and those that were gifted, that were strong readers. And I don't know what time of day it was, but I think it was probably when they come back either from recess or lunch, they would go to that teacher that was running the program for them. Yeah, that's really clumsy. But I tell this story just to impress upon the crowd, the board's aware of the need. We're aware. And what happened to that program probably got too clumsy. I don't know. But then I want to share a story about how much I care for RTI. My granddaughter's in first grade, excuse me if I get emotional, cuter than any grandchild, except maybe her sister. We just went to her soccer game Saturday, and she has that look like, I'm going to, you're not going to stop me. And she's good in math. Well, I wanted to get more information about RTI at their school in Claremont. And I asked my daughter when would be the best time to approach the teacher. And she goes, come with me, we got a conference Friday. So this last Friday, I went to her conference with her mom and her older sister. And the teacher was very gracious and gave me 5 minutes of her conference time to ask questions. She described her as a model student. She went over, taught my daughter, and was teaching her father yesterday on how to assess their fluency and what they could do at home. And back in the day, probably my 5th year, I got my reading credential. I let it lapse, went to administration, but this all came back to me when she went over that with my daughter. And so I asked the questions, you're not a Title I school, are you? And she said no. And I'm just telling these stories, maybe I'll explain their situation at the school, but it's apples and oranges from our schools. I'm just hoping to spark, you teachers are not only dedicated and intelligent, you're also very creative. And if you can come up with something similar to what I'm not espousing this at all, just here's where they're coming from, this school. They have no Title I money. They have fundraisers to pay for part-time RTI teachers. And they are retired teachers, at least the ones in first grade there. And it's an upper middle class school. I don't know if our schools could raise this money. They just had a fundraiser. It was over a couple weeks ago, $40,000. So, and I know site councils in the past have helped pay for certain positions and probably still do. Because as the superintendent alluded to with the funding, we also have Washington and Sacramento to deal with too. They might throw us a curveball. Everything's up in the air. It makes our job, the 7 of us and the superintendent, it's tough. So, but just to, and I can see the improvement in my granddaughter because we go down there every 3 weeks for my wife's treatments, and our granddaughter's sounding out words. She didn't know her sounds in kindergarten to speak of. And now with this intervention, she can sound out words, and her only issue is she'll be reading a story about Mac, and she'll sound out Mac every time. And Mac's on every page. sentence or two. So we're working on it. Just the way she's progressed has given us encouragement. And like the other trustees have stated, let me go back to funding. Most of you were here last time. $9 million deficit spending. But you always want to, as a board member or an administrator, make cuts farthest away from the kids. Well, RTI is about as close to the kids as you can get. So I'm in total, I've given some ideas to the superintendent. I think he kind of touched on them when he just spoke. And it may not be what it is now, but it's got to be done by the teachers that are been trained, know the kids, and continue as much as possible as it is. Thank you. Ms. Ray, you've been very patient.
Thank you, Board, for letting me speak. I just wanted to clarify something that Vice President Kelly said. I currently don't have a learning director. She resigned. So I think a pretty good compromise would be that we share the learning director, Golden Hills and I, and that we both get to keep our RTI teachers in place. So I think that would benefit the students the most.
I didn't know I shared my suggestion to you that I gave to the superintendent. But since you said it, I had to.
Great minds think alike.
Now, if you just be a Bengals fan. Any other comments? Item 2, discussion, social workers. Superintendent?
Again, this is brought forward by one of our Board of Trustees and placed on the agenda for discussion this evening. So we do have a PowerPoint that's attached here that's got some information on the credentialing side of this that was prepared by our Chief Administrator for Personnel. So I'm going to call her forward to present that information, and then we'll get into the discussion side of it.
Good evening, President Kaminsky, board members, and community. So I try to get all of this in as condensed as I could, knowing how lengthy and difficult. So before I go into answering some of Trustee Napier's questions that he had sent to Superintendent Lynch, just want to go over some key terms really quickly that I will be addressing in the presentation, just to ensure that everyone has the same base knowledge. Education code, of course, we all know those are laws that are set by legislature that we must follow. California Department of Education, that's the governing agency that oversees how schools are managed and what they're accountable for. Commission on Teaching Credentialing, which will be referred to as CTC, is the agency which is independent from the Department of Ed that oversees credentialing requirements for professionals that they considered should be credentialed working with our students. The next slide, please. CalPADS. All of our information regarding our students and our certificate staff gets reported to CalPADS. CalPADS then reports it to state and federal government agencies, and that helps us keep accountable to where our funding is going, making sure everything is aligned. In CalPADS, student data information is tracked by a student's ID number that they get, that 10-digit number. Teachers also have a number, so that number tracks every single credential that they are authorized to teach with that number, and it encompasses what they're allowed to teach at what grade level. Credentials, CTC monitors this. This again, when a staff member is given a credential, with that credential is a descriptor. The descriptor will say what grade level to what capacity, what can it encompass, who they can teach, all the way to class sizes, self-contained, single subjects, So again, those are administered by CTC. And our new system that was rolled out in 2019, CalSAS. CalSAS was implemented to track whether we have proper people placed where they need to be. Back in the old days, we didn't have CalSAS. You got to turn in a roster or a schedule, paper one to the state. And so what they found, it was very inconsistent, right? You had people that maybe had an English credential, but they might have been teaching, intro to math. And so that wasn't really what needed to be done according to the credentials. So they developed this CalSAS system. I'll go into it a little more detail that holds us now accountable to ensuring that teachers are placed where they need to be, and the students that are rostered to those teachers are the students that those teachers can be teaching. Okay, so the first question that we were asked is, social workers, do they need to be credentialed? So according to California Education Code, yes, they do need to be credentialed. Under Education Code 44065, it details service credentials, which is what a social worker would fall under, is a requirement that they must have. The credentials under Education Code outline the standards themselves under Education Code 44853 on the difference of those credentials. I gave you the website there. If you were to click on that website or look it up, there's descriptors that specifically designate the credential and what they're able to do. So it would be a pupil service credential. Counselor, it'll list duties that they're responsible for. It'll be a pupil service credential social worker. It'll list duties that they are responsible for. And then it'll list pupil service credential psychologist, and what they can do. So there is not one credential that oversees all of these duties. They are individual assigned credential based upon the credentialing program that each person completes within their university. So per Education Code 44857, the district has an obligation within 60 days to ensure that a certification is registered and valid. So this is after we get our CalSAS reporting. We have a correction window. The county then certifies it. It goes to the state. And then we have to rectify it, either through a variable term waiver, a permit, anything to show that this misassignment, which I'll get into, has been corrected. Education 45034 code doesn't allow the county office to release paychecks if a credential has expired. Does this happen? Yes. We've had a few candidates who have overlooked getting their credential renewed in time. We get an email from the county office, so-and-so's check is on hold until they come and renew their permit. So we will either call the teacher, tell them, look, we need you to hurry up, go down there. Here's your temporary certificate, get it rectified with the county, make sure it's done so that it's taken care of. Credentials are in our ASOP system. It does send out reminders, but it's also the responsibility of the holders to keep track of that professional responsibility of when they have to be renewed. And they're usually renewed unless there's some type of implication on the credential every 5 years. Okay. CalSAS monitoring. So as I said, CalSAS came into play in 2019 was their rollout, and I'll go over that. But the CalSAS monitoring gets information from what we consider census data. So we have census data is collected in October, the first Wednesday of every school year. It's a snapshot window that is taken to collect student data information and certificated data information. So that's where we get all our, where we have to do with our funding, how many, students are enrolled that day. So we really, really need to be accurate in making sure, because if we have a snow day and census data happens on that day, that is definitely not going to be good, because it's only that one-time window. There's no makeup days. Okay, so once we get that data, it's then entered into our CalSAS system. So CalSAS system will flag the information if there's an incorrect match. So our student data information system holds all students' daily schedules in there. Their data information has their student data information ID number. It has their courses. It has the course number that's aligned to a CalPADS code. That CalPADS code is inputted in there. So if a teacher is then the roster teacher of that classroom, any rostered students underneath them are automatically matched to that teacher. So it takes that teacher's ID number and the student's ID number to say, hey, can, teacher Sally be teaching student Johnny? Well, let's see. Johnny needs, say he's an English language learner. Does the teacher Sally have an English language authorization to teach this student? And yes, great, then we're okay. But if the teacher doesn't, then that will become a misassignment. So we would have to rectify it. We would have to go in, say what's going on. Is the teacher enrolled in an EL classes? Are they taking exams? Have we issued them a variable term waiver? Here's the documentation. I have to upload information. So it's all very systematic and succinct. Okay, we have 60 days to correct these. Just for some back history, when I got here, my first year here, this data information usually comes out in September regarding the previous year. When I first got here, we had close to 170 misassignments, which is a lot. So it's not like a mass upload. I can go and correct. They have to be corrected one by one by one. So it's working with our SIS manager to figure out, was this a CalPADS code error? Was a code used for a class that is no longer valid? So we get these CalPADS codes for classes, and the state gets to update these codes. For example, a code could have been used that maybe in the past was for marching band, but now that code is used for outdoor water activities. Well, we don't have anyone credentialed to teach outdoor water activities, so yes, we got some missed assignments for our band teacher that was supposed to be assigned a code for marching band. Our color guard. So there's a lot of that happening. A lot of it happens with our special ed, because some students will have multiple indicators that place them in special ed, but they'll take their primary disability and match that up with the teacher. So if their primary disability they decided was speech, but they might be in an RSP classroom, well, the RSP teacher does not have a credential to teach speech. So then I have to go in there and I have to put in the speech teacher's identification number, say that it's a pull-out model, upload the schedule so that it could be rectified. So these are done for every single missed assignment.
Can I make a comment real quick?
Yeah.
Can we just focus on the social worker aspect of it?
Well, this will get there. So this is where I'm getting at. So when we get there, the reason being is we've had social workers that are coming up as missed assignments because they do not have their social worker pupil service credential. The majority of our social workers are licensed individuals. So I have been inputting their information into the system with their license number. It is still coming up as misassignments, even though they are state licensed individual. Thank you, Mr. McKay. Okay, next slide, please. So this was the rollout of this CalSAS and why we're at where we are today. So you'll see 1920 consequential. This year, we haven't received any notification yet what sanctions will be given by the state for repeated misassignments under the same category. So we're still in a waiting game for that. Next slide. We do have to consider corrections that need to be in compliance per education code and CTC. I do want to make clear that when I met with the social workers on January 4th, and Dr. Porter was in that meeting, I did share that they had been tracked in this system for several years as misassigned, even though I had tried to use their license number for some of them. I did share with them during this meeting, this was not a reflection of who they were and the work that they were doing with students. This was a compliance issue with education code and CTC. I did list some options that could be available. They can contact their universities they recently graduated from to see if they would be able to help add an authorization or complete an authorization. They can work as independent contractors, as many schools do. They can enroll in a program, and we could apply for a variable term waiver for them. The waivers usually last up to 5 years. I just need to show that they're showing progress towards a program, because I do have to submit their acceptance and their class schedules every year. They can contact the CTC Roadmap for Teaching for guidance. And I did at the time know of a summer program that they could get completed in the summer for those of them that did have licensure to add the credential. The next question that was given by Trustee Napier was regarding the job description of the social worker. The job description of the social worker has not been changed since the school board approved it on April 13th, 2021. It is available under the personnel website under job descriptions. There, next slide, please. The job descriptions show that a valid California pupil personnel service credential in social work was required for this position. Again, this was not changed by me, nor has any job descriptions ever been changed by me. If you look at board records, some of you that have been a part of the board, when I have brought draft revisions to job descriptions, they're always in draft form first. They're always done in collaborations with those that wanted or asked or sought to have the job description revised. I always take feedback, and it always comes with approval. I've never done anything like that unilaterally on my own, nor was this one the same thing. Again, there's some notes on the bottom. When we post for positions, whether we're backfilling or the new positions, it is not just my unilateral decision. My staff knows they are to contact the hiring manager. So if we're hiring for a special ed position, teacher, or a special ed para, they would contact Mr. Mock, ask him, is this position still needed? Do we need to change anything? And then move forward in that way. If there is a new position that needs to be posted, I do not tell school sites, you need to add this position, or I am telling you to add this position. These decisions are made based at the site level, and they're at the discretion of the principal. They then come, we discuss it in cabinet with Mr. Intazari, right? If we're adding a position, we have to see where is that funding coming from? What is it going to look like? Do we have a current job description? And does it need to be done? So it's always done in a collaborative model.
I have a question just to
Yes.
clarify. I think I know the answer, but on slide 5, on CalSAS monitoring,
Yes.
the first bullet point in the middle, it said the system compares records from this date to track teacher and service provider assignments. If a teacher doesn't have the right credentials for their job on that day, it will flag an issue in the system. That last sentence, is that also true for the service providers?
Yes.
Okay.
It's for anyone that the CTC, our education code says that they're required to have a credential.
Okay, thank you.
So it would be speech pathologists, counselors, social workers, psychologists, any of them.
I have a question.
Yes.
On your slides, you're showing 6 years' worth of data, correct?
Well, I'm not showing
of the
data.
Well, the misassignments,
Yeah, I'm showing
essentially.
when the system
Was anybody
came out.
hired recently without a PPE credential?
Most recently,
Well,
we've
within
had,
these 6
yes,
years?
we have clinical licensed social workers.
So we're knowingly hiring, violating, creating these assignments, and now we're trying to hold them accountable? Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, the job description allows us, they're also under consumer affairs as licensed social workers.
Correct, but we're holding teachers accountable after we knowingly hired them without a credential.
Without
So
a
we did them a
PPS.
disservice.
Yes, we did, and I did get approval from our superintendent at that time to do so.
I do understand the challenges, but it seems like we had 6 years to address and correct this. And the fact that we're still hiring without this credential, like, we should have addressed that right then and there and not continued to hire without it.
Well, when I discussed this with our superintendent at that time, she wanted to continue to move forward in this manner.
I understand, but at the end of the day, that's your responsibility, correct?
And I then did urge her, we should put these on a variable term waiver. And she said, let's just see how it goes with these new positions.
Okay. The last thing is I know I'm a newer board member, not brand new, but I feel like I should have known this last year or maybe the year before, not 6 years later.
Yeah.
I
Again-
don't think we did any good, we did not do our due diligence here.
And I completely understand that, but again, if I go to my supervisor.
Of course.
And I share the misassignments and what could be the penalties, it's not my call to make the decision on how to move forward.
Correct. I feel like it should have been brought up, though.
Okay, no, and I completely understand that.
My rebuttal to that comment is we have dozens of employees throughout the years come and bring things to the board's attention who go above and beyond their supervisors because they're concerned, they have issues. When you allow people to be in positions for year after year after year, the assumption is the district's good with that. And you allow people to establish relationships, establish connections, and do their jobs, and then it's just, since the superintendent's gone, you decide to bring this to our attention. Yeah, that's fine. We got to deal with it. We'll deal with it. And I have a recommendation when we're done. But yeah, this mismanagement
Yeah.
of just allowing your supervisor to have you put the board in a very bad place. That's why these people are here, because
Yeah.
they're pissed at us to allow this to get to this point. It's a problem.
Yeah, and I completely understand that, and I understand your frustration. Before our superintendent left, we did have a conversation again, because again, these reports come out every September, and I said, okay, we're here again at the same place. At that time, I was told we will give them notice after December.
Yeah, after she retires.
Yeah, and
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know about the retirement. I didn't know the meaning behind it. I am just here now when I came to do this, and I understand, and I'm not saying that they're not doing their work or they're great people. I'm trying to balance keeping us in compliance with education code and credentials and still being able to provide this service. And so, you know, unfortunately, we're here at this crossroad, and it's up to our superintendent and the board. Do we continue and move forward with the liability? I don't know, but that's not my place to make that decision.
Just real quick, I do understand that you're in a rock and a hard place. But again, we teach our students to, when they see something, say something. And I think we need to lead by example. And not saying something at all is, I understand your supervisor said that, but that's why we have these checks and balances in place. So I hope we take this back, and moving forward, we do not hide behind somebody else. Because I think we are liable and that we need to hold ourselves accountable because we put them in this position, and that is not fair to them. That is not being a good member or a good board member to allow that to happen.
And I completely understand that, but again, she was my boss at the time, and I have to go to her to get guidance on what are you going to want to do, because eventually these things would have come to the board to been approved in a variable term waiver in some sort of permit, and she would have needed to prepare the board to see those items.
Again, I understand, and I'm just going to be really advocate. I have a leader too that I report to every day, and when I have a concern that is not being addressed, I go to their leader, and we are their leader, correct? So like, this is something that definitely should have been brought forward and not tabled and swept under the rug. This is not doing what we as a community advocate for and putting our people first, and I'm just going to have to disagree, and you know, we'll have more comments after, but I feel like we did a big disservice here.
Okay, noted.
Any other board member want to comment at this time, or do we want to hear from the public comments? Okay.
So,
Thank you, Dr. Romero.
before we hear from public comment, I want to know if the superintendent wanted to speak before public comment or after. Okay.
Gail Purdy.
Good evening, Superintendent and members of the board. I appreciate your being here tonight in the long evening. I appreciate your viewpoints. I've been really excited to hear that you're on the same page we are, who are sitting out here, to support our schools and our students. My comment is, when kids are in crisis, their physical reactions don't allow them to learn. It blocks learning. So we need these people to nurture and to support and to guide the young students who don't know what to do. So what do they do if they're not able to learn because crisis has blocked their learning? They go into a shell, or they may decide to disrupt to get attention. If they don't get attention from being successful, they'll go for attention for being disruptive. And the social workers help to ground them and to support them and to encourage them the way the teachers don't have a chance to do. And those people that are here tonight to represent what they do are people who have invested in these children, and these children have gotten to know them, and in some cases, they're their only supportive role model. So I'm here I have been led to understand that there is a workaround to this issue, and I would love to see that workaround be in place, because as Trustee Sweeney said, This has been in the making for a long time, and you don't stab the people in the back who've been supporting the school and the students because something wasn't done correctly. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Purdy. Leah Ward.
My name is Leah Ward. I don't usually do this. Gail talked me into it. But I think it's important that you understand what our social workers do. Mr. Colby, when he first started, and I heard we had a social worker, I said, what do we need a social worker for? I have worked at JMS since it was JJHS, 22, 23 years. I now know why we need a social worker. There are students that come to school because they know Mr. Colby will greet them at the back gate. Fist bump, they know he's there. He knows if they have any problem during the day, they can get a pass and go and see them. And he may not be able to fix it, but he can listen. He can help. And he's there for all of our students and adults. He helps everybody. I can't imagine Jacobson without Mr. Colby. And I'm not saying social worker, I'm saying Mr. Colby. Not everybody can work at the middle school. Michelle's awesome at the elementary school. I've known Michelle for years. She's great with that age. Mr. Colby is great with our crazy middle schoolers and everything that goes on with them. From what I've heard and what I've read, I must disagree with some of the things that Dr. Romero has said about credentials, licensures, and all of that. From what I understand, it's a PPS, if I'm saying that right, not just in social work, but hold a PPS. I think that should be looked into. I don't want to lose him. I think he's great for our schools. I think he's great for our kids. I think he's great for our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. Michelle Anderson.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to talk. And last week I came up and introduced myself, and I am the social worker at Golden Hills Elementary School. I was hired less than 2 years ago, and I had absolutely no knowledge at all of needing to have a PPS in social work. You're not able to obtain that without a master's in social work. I've worked with children since 1992, and I've been a licensed marriage and family therapist for 28 years. I just want to speak in behalf of the children. I have 5 children that lost their parents last year. A kinder, a first, a second, a third, and a fourth. And I work with them. And I cannot imagine telling them that I cannot see them next year. So if there is a way to change the verbiage, the words, the title, keep the relationships, please. Relationships are what this world is about, and we need caring to help these kids who are struggling and traumatized, and they need that external regulator to help them calm their nervous systems down. And I feel that my relaxation station is the ticket for them. And so I hope if you guys have an option to change the words, the title, the description, there's no funding issues, I hope that you choose relationship. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Carrie Colby.
Thank you once again. I had a whole speech prepared. I changed it based on some of this stuff. So good evening, and thank you for allowing us to speak. Thank you to the JMS team, Mr. Lowe. current superintendent, future superintendent, the board, and everyone else here that supports us. What was presented was true. What Dr. Romero said, every bit of it's true. Since we got that information January 14th, we weren't here January 4th, but January 14th, I've been trying to find a solution. The solution that keeps and continually gets presented is that there's nothing. We can just take a termination at the end of the year. The relationships that we build encourage me not to do that, to just take a termination and roll over, but to fight for an alternative solution. We're not perfect. I haven't done everything perfect. The reason these people stand up here behind me is because we deal with imperfect people. And our job is just to be there and support them and love them through this. 4 years I've been here. This has never been brought up that I didn't have the right credentials to do this job. We have incredible social workers, guys, every single one of them. Michelle and Stephen are back there, and I wouldn't trade one of the 5 people, but all 5 of us were hired without that credential. We signed contracts with nothing being mentioned about us having to earn a different credential. We were told that what we had was valid. So we came wholeheartedly serving our kids. If this is, I was going to say something completely different, but if this is my sunset, I've loved and appreciated every minute of working with our kids' families and many of you. And tonight I'm going to publicly apologize to one of our students' parents who's back here. Part of our job is doing home visits. And oftentimes that has to do with attendance, that has to do with issues that kids are facing. And sometimes those aren't the easiest things to do, those home visits. And there was a situation where I didn't read a motion correctly, and I think I offended a parent. And I think it's my duty to apologize to her publicly and say I'm sorry. And I love this community, and I don't want any of this to reflect bad on this district, so thank you. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Whatever you choose to do, I get it. You know, we have things to do, but we're gonna keep fighting until we're told no the 10th time, maybe, I don't know, something like that. So thank you guys for allowing me to speak. I appreciate every bit of being here.
Thank you, Mr. Colby. Jennifer Webb.
Kind of hard to follow that one. Good evening, board members. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I would like to start my time with a quote. A person who comes to management with a problem and no solution is a part of the problem. We do not want to be part of the problem. Dr. Romero presented you one solution, and we are here to say there is another one. The second solution is more effective, more efficient, and more economical. I will start with the problem. It was brought to your attention at the last board meeting that our social workers are faced with a dilemma. Most of them do not have the PPS credential that their current job description requires. Tonight you've heard from Dr. Romero about Ed Code's CTC credentialing requirements, misassignment issues, how corrections need to be made in compliance, and what the consequences may be if we do not make these changes. They will also ask you to approve paying a person outside our district to conduct observation hours for individuals needing PPS to meet these compliance issues. We are not here to debate this. Everything you've heard from her is 100% true. The current job descriptions do require a PPS in social work. We have been out of compliance according to Ed Code and the CDE since these individuals were hired. We do need to make a change in order for our district to be in compliance. All of our social workers could get their PPS in social work to fix this issue. There are a couple of things I want to point out with this solution. Getting your PPS in social work is not an overnight easy endeavor. This option will cost the current social workers and the district thousands of dollars and countless hours. There's a proposal being brought before you tonight of paying someone outside our district $150 per hour to observe individuals seeking their PPS. Only one of our current social workers has their PPS in social work. That means 4 of them would need to make this change to be in compliance. What will be the hours of observations needed to be for the next 2 years for them to obtain this credential? Most programs require up to 450 hours of observation. At 150 per hour, that would be $67,500 per individual. Multiply that by 4. It has now cost the district upwards of $270,000 to help these individuals attain their PPS. That is only the district cost. I would also like to point out, over the last 5 years since the district has been hiring social workers under the current job description, none of them were hired with the proper credentials, and only one has obtained said credential within the last 6 months. I would inquire why this has happened. Is it possible it is extremely difficult to find individuals with a PPS in social work to work in our remote district? I would find it hard to believe we just decided to hire unqualified individuals. There is a second solution, one that would cost the district very little, if anything. Change the job requirements, title, and/or description as necessary for those who are currently holding these positions to qualify. This is not a situation where people were hired under the agreement they would obtain this credential. They have held these positions for years under the assumption that as long as they performed their duties and the funding was there, that they were safe. It was not until January, as you know, that they were told otherwise. They knew nothing of the compliance issues and knew nothing needing to be different in the credential. I just have about 4 more sentences if I can finish, or I can have Jessica step over.
No,
and
go
do
ahead and
hers.
finish up.
They knew nothing of the compliance that anyone needed. It has happened before in our district, and I am sure many others, that changes have been made to job postings, job requirements, and job descriptions in order to keep valued employees. These are employees, as you can see, are not just another person who can be replaced by anyone. They have worked hard to build relationships with the employees, students, and families they work with, as you witnessed tonight firsthand. Please do the right thing. This is a solution that we as a district have the ability to make these changes so we can be in compliance and keep our current staff. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Webb. Eric Lowe? Before you start, Mr. Lowe, I'm glad to see you in your regular seat after so many months away.
I don't think anyone else wants it. No one wants to be in the first row looking at you guys. All right. It's too scary. But anyway, thank you for giving me a few minutes. I came this evening because I saw the agenda, and I just wanted to come give you my 2 cents on the social worker and Mr. Colby specifically. I'm not going to speak on all the social workers. I don't have experience. I'm sure other people here can help you with that. But for middle school, first I want to say the social worker has been a godsend. The transition to 6th grade in particular is a very difficult one here in Tehachapi, with the exception of maybe kindergarten. It's the biggest change. The kids come together for the first time, and they're a wild and woolly group to begin with at that age, and for them to come together and try to figure that out on their own is difficult. And I will say, although I'm going to speak about Mr. Colby, the entire staff at JMS does an incredible job of helping those students. But the social worker is a unique position at Jacobson Middle School. The students are well aware of what role they play. They know that administrators might be working on discipline with them. They know that teachers will be giving them assignments and grading them on academics. But that's not the case with the social worker. The social worker is just there for them. And so it's a very valuable situation at the middle school. And I understand the legalities of what needs to be done. But I do want to speak on Mr. Colby. 4 years ago, I was lucky enough to be in this room and to interview Mr. Colby along with Sharon Heitman. And as we went through the interviews, she was the principal at the time. As we went through the interviews, we decided that we were going to do everything we possibly could do to make sure that Mr. Colby ended up at Jacobson Middle School, because it was clear that not only was he the right person for Tehachapi, but he was also the right person for the middle school students. And I'll admit that at my time as an administrator at JMS, one of my proudest things that I have anything to do with was getting Mr. Colby united with the students of Jacobson Middle School. He does more than you could possibly know. So I really can't say more than what other people have said. I'd be reiterating a lot. He's out there all the time for the students. He's one of the first people they see. He's often the last person they see as they go. And he's a trusted advocate for the students. That's what he does best. He's fearless in some very scary situations. And he does what needs to be done for the betterment of the students. So all I really want to say is, if there's a way to keep Mr. Colby at Jacobson Middle School, as you instruct the superintendent on how you want things to happen, if you work on trying to keep him there, your time will be well spent. If you have more you want to know, it's easy to find my email. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Superintendent Lynch, go ahead.
Thank you very much. First thing I want to say is that obviously I'm fairly new here, so I want to make it clear that none of the discussions about social workers or anything had to do with anybody in particular. I have the benefit of coming from a history in the HR world, and in HR we have to be very good at separating a position from a person. And so obviously I don't know Mr. Colby very well. I can't imagine that JMS would be the place it is without him there. However, you know, it was brought to me as a problem that needed a solution. So in doing that, in looking at that, we look at what the solutions are. And, you know, I appreciate the idea of maybe figuring out a way to change a job description, but then we would have to change what Mr. Colby does. And so I appreciate the outside, or I won't say outside the box thinking, but the novel solutions, because I think I appreciate a good novel solution because I like to bring them myself. So I think that if the board were to direct me in such a way, I would sit down with our principals and our personnel department and meet with our folks and see what we can do to figure this out. I think that there are some solutions we could probably look at. I'm not sure that all of them necessarily meet, you know, I think to have social workers, they would have to have social worker credentials. Social worker credentials are fairly new. To the state of California, we didn't have them 6 years ago. So when this job was posted, it was a new credential. That's also why we don't know what would happen, I think, from the state level. You know, the state could come down with sanctions and say, just like they do for a teacher that's teaching 10th grade math, if they have a multiple subject credential, they can't teach 10th grade math. So if we were to put a person in that assignment, the county would come to us and say, well, we're holding that person's check until they figure out how to get how to get credentialed, and they'd have to go to the county office and get a temporary certificate and enroll in a program to get that kind of credential, or find the college units to do that. So there are some very specific things from the credentialing side of it. I think we had a pretty good conversation in closed session, got some good information there. And so with that, I think I'll leave it to what your comments are, and then at the end, I'm sure you'll have some direction for me as to where to go.
Okay, Trustee Napier.
Okay, well, thank you for agendizing this, Superintendent Lynch and President Kaminsky. I appreciate that. So again, it's the term I used the first go around was experts, but now the term that I'm going to grab onto from somebody else was relationships, and those relationships matter. You know, if you guys ever read a book called The Power of Connection, but the power of connection is incredible, and these social workers throughout our district have an incredible connection with the students. And when I first got on the board about 5-ish years ago, I think I've only told the story to a couple people, but a former board member met with me for lunch, and he quickly chastised me and warned me and gave me caution that I should never make a decision based upon the fact that I have 6 children. I quickly got up and left the meeting and told him not to ever question my integrity or my desire or reason for being on this board. And I can honestly say that if something is good for my kids, it's good for other people's kids as well. And I personally experienced some social workers in this district. I've heard from other people, parents and people, members of the community who have had very, very specific, detailed conversations with these social workers. They are a safe, welcoming, warm place for our kids. And at times, I guarantee my boys have talked to Mr. Colby about things that they deal with me as a parent. And that's confidential, and it's a safe place for them to talk. and go, my dad's annoying. And you guys in the room are like, yeah, we know that. Yeah, no, you don't say that. Come on. Anyways, so in my opinion, this is a very straightforward issue. My direction would be that the board direct the superintendent to meet with affected social workers and principals to ensure their retention and support their continued work. If that requires changing job titles, adjusting job descriptions, or come up with creative solutions, or simply helping them enter the necessary programs, the superintendent should collaborate with the site leadership to find the best solution for students in the schools to retain the experts who have the best relationships with our kids. So I'll leave it at that.
Any other board member? Mr. Moon, since you thanked me for letting you speak last meeting, I'll let you speak this meeting.
Well, you know, I did want to come and say thank you all for letting. There we go. Okay, so I do say thank you. I also have to say how much I enjoyed seeing you at my school last week. It was really nice. For years, you know, I wanted the board to be able to come, and I know you all work and you're very busy, but just coming and being there means a lot more than I think you realize. I've been teaching 32 years, and all of this stuff, PPS and all this stuff, I don't really pay much attention to. And the reason is experience. When I first started working, I worked at Lost Hills, very small little school. My very first staff meeting, I'm sitting there and I'm gonna listen and pay attention. And our principal got up and said, okay, we're having a new state mandated testing system this year. And he went on for about 10 minutes talking about it. And one of the older teachers, Betty Horn, God bless her, raises her hand. He goes, so how long will this one last? And the principal said, well, this is what it's going to be, and this is what's coming from the state, and goes on and on and on about it. And someone said, well, what happens? Well, they could come and they could take us over. They could remove administration. And at that moment, most of the teachers are like crossing their fingers. Please, please. So a long time ago, I stopped really paying attention to the details of all that because it really doesn't have anything to do with what we do, okay? After all of these years, all of this comes down to one simple thing, is just doing the right thing. We talk to the students about, you don't have to be a hero. You don't have to jump in front of a bullet. You just have to do what's right. Stand up and do what you should do. It's not always easy. It's not always the simplest thing, but it's that simple. And I say for RTI and for Mr. Colby and all of the social workers, supporting them is what's doing what's right. If the state hasn't figured this out after 4 years, they're not coming after us. I'm not saying in any way we should not be doing what's legal, but we can figure out solutions to these things because ultimately, and it's a cliche, but cliches are true, what's best for the students is the very first thing we need to keep in mind. And that is your responsibility as the board, is doing what's best and what's right for our students. So thank you very much again, and I hope to see all of you at my school sometime. It's a little scary in the hallway between classes, I know. But it's like a particle accelerator of, you know, young, smelly students. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Moon. Mr. Napier, Trustee Napier.
I have a comment. I don't know if Mr. Moon remembers it or not, but I've actually been in his classroom during class. It was not to be observing as a board member because my child was acting out of good behavior. So I sat there with him in class. He hated every second of it. So I threatened that a lot. So Mr. Moon, thank you for letting me be there. It was great. I actually learned a couple things too. It was actually interesting.
Any board member? I just want to add, I might get emotional on this too. I have experienced Mr. Colby's wisdom and kindness personally. No, I don't have a child at the middle school. When I was a private citizen, I don't know what led me to his office. I asked him if he had a couple minutes. He gave me whatever I needed, 10, 15. And said, I need some advice. My daughter's going through an ugly divorce. And he took the time to talk to me. And then when I was called to JMS by a staff member, Carrie entered the office I was in. First thing out of his mouth, how are your wife and daughter doing? Now, what's so difficult about this is that we took an oath, every one of us, to follow the law. And we can not like the law. It is what it is. Then we have to deal with it. So in closed session, it was very informational for the board, and we understand where we stand. And I think I, for one, will instruct Superintendent Lynch that we aren't giving up on this. He mentioned what he was planning to do, and I'm all in favor for finding a solution, as he is, and as speaking for the whole board. Things might have to be a little different, to be honest, and I'm sure Mr. Lynch will explain that to the principals and whoever he meets with. Just so the audience knows, that we take this, like with the RTI, extremely seriously. And I'm express confidence in Superintendent Lynch and the principals and the social workers and anybody else that he has in those meetings to find a solution. Thank you. I think it'd be wise if we took a 10, 15-minute break. It is 7:53. That's what I'm. It is 8:14, and we are reconvening after our break. We have one more item for the superintendent, the approval of board policy 5113.2, work permits. Superintendent Lynch.
Good evening again, everybody. This was brought for a first read at our last meeting 2 weeks ago. This is the work permits board policy, and it's before you tonight for approval. There is one minor change. We're taking the word district out so that we can provide work permits for any student residing in the Tehachapi community. So,
Any questions or comments from the board? Do I have a motion to approve board policy 5113.2, work permits as presented?
So move.
I'll make the motion.
It was motion by trustee Christensen and seconded by clerk Wood. The board approved board policy 5113.2. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Superintendent Lynch. Mr. Intezari, business. Number 1, acceptance of audit report for fiscal year ending June 30, 2024.
Thank you, President Kaminsky, board members. As usual, I just want to direct you to the audit report, page 89 of the actual attachment, just for your reference. So it is about a 100-page document, but this page, it refers to you the summary of auditor's results. So you can look at it as a report card. So this is pretty much summarizes what the results of the audit. So we're happy to report that the type of report being issued is an unmodified, which means that everything as presented to you, to the public, in terms of our actual spending, our state and federal compliance, has all been materially correct and does not require any kind of modification. Happy to report there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls. So essentially, you'll have a process. Someone is supposed to do something, but an internal control would be, well, who checks it to make sure it's right, or what systems are in place to make sure that something doesn't accidentally, cause a material misstatement. There were no instances of non-compliance material to our financial statements, so all of this is very good. This flowed through to our federal awards and state awards. So as you might be aware, there's also a compliance element, state and federal compliance requirements to the audit that they also look into. So for the year ending June 30, 2024, last fiscal year, they audited our SPED program and as well as the ESSER dollars. Happy to report that we are considered a low-risk auditee. And so there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that were identified. We did have one finding related to, I know, it's a big one. Please don't get us in trouble, but we had our public hearing for the instructional materials. It has to be within the first 8 weeks of school. It was held when it normally is in October, but based on how the calendar fell, it was on the 9th week of school. So our sincerest apologies. This is just something that, because it is a compliance requirement, that did make it as a finding, but we have just met with the instructional department and we'll just make sure to be in compliance with that moving forward. But other than that, we seek your acceptance of the audit report as it is, or any questions if you have any.
Any questions or comments from the board? Do I have a motion for the board to approve acceptance of audit report for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024 as presented?
Full motion.
Kelly, a second.
was motioned by trustee Sweeney, seconded by Vice President Kelly to approve the acceptance of the audit report for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. It's a roll call vote. Ms. Barnes?
President Kaminsky.
Aye.
Vice President Kelly.
Aye.
Clerk Wood. Aye. Trustee Cooper.
Aye.
Trustee Christensen.
Aye.
Trustee Napier.
Aye.
Trustee Sweeney.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries 7-0. Number 2, approval of the agreement between Kern Community College District and Tehachapi Unified School District 2024 and to 2025 school year and 2025 to 2026 school year. Mr. Antazari.
Thank you, President Kaminsky. So the healthcare pathway project through the Kern Community College District is intended for English language learners, specifically for accessing healthcare education and career opportunities. The district would be entitled to $20,000 in the 24-25 school year, as well as $20,000 next fiscal year, and we seek your approval to enter into the agreement.
Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the agreement between Kern Community College District and Tehachapi Unified School District as presented?
Kelly, make the motion.
I'll second.
It was motioned by Vice President Kelly, seconded by Trustee Sweeney, that the board approve the agreement between Kern Community College District and Tehachapi Unified School District. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Number 3, ratification of the agreement between Solient and Tehachapi Unified School District for sign language interpreter services. Mr. Intezari.
Thank you, President Kaminsky. We're seeking to enter into the sign language interpreter services due to current staffing shortages and specialized credentialing requirements. The rate, this would be entered into March 26th through June 12th, and we expect at the rate of $60 an hour to spend an amount not to exceed $21,000 funded by the budget allocated for services for SPED. We seek your approval for this agreement, or the ratification, my apologies.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Yeah.
Vice President Kelly.
Just real quick, I'm all in support of this, but I would like us to, and I think I'll bring it up in future items, is I would like us to explore the option of having a staff person get certified and making sure that we continue to have a staff.
We did have a staff person that resigned, and so we went through all the proper channels like Kern County, KCSOS, all that kind of thing, and we couldn't find anybody to do it. That's why we went to a contract.
Totally get that. I'm just saying if there's something we can do in the future to make sure that we don't, whoops, again, appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Do I have a motion that the board approve the agreement between Solient and Tehachapi Unified School District for sign language interpreter services as presented?
Kelly, I make the motion.
Second.
It was motioned by Vice President Kelly, seconded by Trustee Cooper. The board approved the agreement between Solient and Tehachapi Unified School District for sign language interpreter services. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Number 4, approval of the agreement between Braun Electric Company and Tehachapi Unified School District. Mr. Intezari.
Thank you, President Kaminsky. The district is seeking to replace the original Ethernet wiring at Cummings Valley School, upgrading to new Cat6 cabling to enhance network performance. The cost of the agreement is not to exceed $180,089.89 and is included in the budget allocated to the Technology Department for capital improvements. We seek your approval.
Any questions or comments from the board? Do I have
I do.
Oh, I'm sorry. Vice President Kelly.
Mr. Intezari, is this similar to what we did at Jacobson last year, the year before?
Yes, a much smaller project, but the same concept of improving the network infrastructure due to the increased use of technology.
Thank you.
And this will be done in the summer like JMS's was?
Yes.
Anyone else? Do I have a motion the board approve the agreement between Braun Electric Company and Tehachapi Unified School District as presented?
Kelly, make the motion.
Second.
It was motioned by Vice President Kelly, seconded by Trustee Cooper, that the board approve the agreement between Braun Electric Company and Tehachapi Unified School District. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye, sorry.
Motion carries 7-0.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. Intezari. Item 13, future items. Since you just mentioned it, you had to,
Yeah. So I would like at a future point to see what the cost associated with a sign language certificate is. I think BC, I know Saracosa does not have a system right now. BC does, maybe Saracosa will, but also to see if there's any staff interest in actually accomplishing that as well, please. And I'll email it as well. Thank you.
anyone else have future items? I mean, we've had two already this evening. I would like, since I'm thinking of it, it's probably been over a year. Someone with a better memory can correct me, that we approved a mobile library and for after-school use, and a mobile STEAM van for after-school use, and haven't seen one yet. Mr. Intezari?
Is it an update for a future, or can I tell you now?
Not future. Well, I'm going to add one more thing. Yeah, the food truck. He knew what I was going to say. When we were walking JMS, we walked through the outdoor eating area, and I mentioned to Mr. Adamson about when I was a principal, the CBO at the time, 2 CBOs before you, so it's been a while, bought a food truck that was used, and we were able to split it with the high school and get meals like street tacos and just something that wasn't served in the cafeteria, and the kids could use their electronic payment. It worked out pretty well, and I don't know if there's a staffing issue or what, but Mr. Intezari, go ahead. Well, no, future item. It's a future item. So, and I didn't have time really to ask you today, because I brought it up with you the other day, but just wanted to get it on the record. Nothing against you. All right. And any other future items? With that, the next item is adjournment, and it's 8:25. Thank you, everybody.